and welcome to Fantasy Football Code Red on InRadio.com.
Order the Code Red!
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hey, good morning, folks. We're back here on Fantasy Football Code Red. To my left, I've got the very knowledgeable and occasionally humorous Commander Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing Admiral, week 3. Looking forward to it.
Okay. And to my right, I've got a guy that is not as dumb as he looks.
Hard to imagine.
How you doing, Porterhouse?
How are you?
Good, man.
What's up, Admiral?
All right, listen, let's get right into a review of Week 2 in fantasy football action. It was a pretty exciting week. The big news that we have to go over, obviously, is the big early season, very unusual trade that we had this week. We had the Broncos packing it in Week 2.
Browns
packing it in Week 2 and sending Trent Richardson over to the Colts. I got to tell you, that trade makes no sense to me. I mean, you know, they traded for a number 1 draft pick. They basically traded a number 1 draft pick for a number 1 draft pick. It makes zero sense to me. It sends a message to the entire team that they're already giving up on the season. You know, you got to love it from a Colts perspective. It's a great trade for them, and you know, even though they gave up a number 1 pick, it's a great trade for them. And you know, the only relevance there really is in terms of fantasy for that is Ahmad Bradshaw now becomes completely irrelevant, which was surprising. But they obviously have no faith in him being able to stay on the field. So I'm going to throw it to you. I know you've got some pretty strong feelings.
Yeah,
about this.
first of all, I was stunned. I think I came home, I saw it, and I was like, what are the Browns doing? I'm like, first of all, it's week 3. There's no reason. I mean, maybe they make it now because if he gets hurt, then you can't trade him. But I mean, it's week 3. Your whole fan base in Cleveland is up in arms for this. You know, all right, they're getting a number 1 draft pick, but if the Colts finish anything over 8-8, you're getting like the 19th, 20th, 25th pick. It's not going to be. It's not going to be that.
All for a guy that they traded up for with the 3rd pick.
We're trying to get RG3. They traded up to get RG3, and they didn't get him.
Running back, 3 down back. There's only so many of them in this league now. There's just not as many as there used to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be this week. You know, he's not going to be an every down back this week. I'm sure they're going to try to utilize
He's exhausted.
Bradshaw. Well, he's got to get comfortable with the offense.
Well, also think about this. He practiced Wednesday all day. He didn't find out till he got home at 6:15 after a full day of practice.
On the radio,
okay,
no less.
Finds out. Then he has to fly to Indianapolis, lands at 2 o'clock in the morning. Wakes up at 7 a.m. for a physical. Then he's out there for blitz pickups. Now he's flying to the West Coast. This guy is beat.
Yeah.
He's just shot.
Yeah,
Bradshaw will still, it'll be maybe a 50-50 split on the carries probably today, I would say.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you worry about with the Browns is, okay, week 1 for 3 quarters in the game with the Dolphins. We could have gone either way.
Yeah.
Bad quarterback play.
And
week 2,
Dolphins team,
week 2 were up on the Ravens for most of that game.
Yeah.
Still lost by 8, but you know what? It was a 1-score game.
But their defense has been playing very well.
Absolutely. You spent the money on Kruger and guys like that. Hayden's a stud. Whedon stinks. Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback.
And I think the whole motive behind this trade was to draft a quarterback in the first round next year, but it makes no sense.
You were going to get the quarterback with your other pick.
It makes no sense.
You were going to be a top 3 pick and get your quarterback anyway.
Right. It makes no sense.
Bridgewater, I guess, is the target that they
Bridgewater,
Bridgewater
they might like Manziel, who knows? People see him as a breeze type of player. I mean, who knows?
I mean, Bridgewater is a hot topic in Cleveland right now, but it still makes no sense. It's
Not this early. If it was week 8 and Cleveland's 2-6, then it's fine. But
I still, you know, if you're a team that's rebuilding and you've got a dynamic running back like Richardson, why are you not building around him? You know, it makes no sense to me.
I like Trent a lot. I mean, this is going to be better for his fantasy value going forward. Colts play a different offense this year than last year. Arians is gone. Brought the guy in from Stanford, a lot more running, like Stephon Johnson used to do. Stephon Taylor used to do. At Stanford on a regular basis. I mean, Richardson's going to have a good year. I don't think he's going to have a great game.
Colts-wise, it's a tremendous no-brainer for the Colts to do this.
You wouldn't get him at the 18th pick, a player of Richardson caliber next year anyway.
Not a chance.
And on top of it, now the Browns didn't even have a back. So they go out and they pick up Scrap Pete Willis McGahee.
A guy that worked out with at least 3 or 4 other teams.
It's coming
and
off
nobody had any interest.
another knee injury, which he's had so many
And they're
of.
saying McGahee might actually play today, which is...
And also just think about the fact that McGahee's career may not have even happened if Gore didn't get hurt at Miami.
Yeah.
Because he was Gore's backup. Gore got hurt. McGahee got to play. He had a good college career. I'm not saying he didn't, but he wouldn't have played.
Right.
He would have been behind Gore. He would have had 1 year. Because
And look what he did with
Gore's
that
been better. I
opportunity,
mean,
though.
just to
But
be
look what he
honest.
did with the opportunity.
Oh, no, he
Just-
turned it into a star, but he would have been a late round pick, not the early round pick he was. I'm just saying.
No, you're
But I
absolutely
think
right.
he's kind of like not what he
A
was.
stunning trade, which usually never happens in the NFL. Usually, even
Very
the
rare.
trade deadlines, there's nothing happens. So for
Very
this to
rare.
happen, it's stunning.
Usually a backup offensive lineman goes for a 7th round pick. That's the NFL trades.
Right.
Here we are.
So let's wrap up week 2. We've got our list of top performers that we want to throw out there. We had some quarterbacks that just had monster weeks in week 2. Aaron Rodgers.
He carried me to beat you guys, but
Yes,
we'll
he
get into
did.
that later.
Listen, he was almost Peyton-esque with his 480 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Big win over Washington. Michael Vick actually played Thursday night, so I'm actually talking about his
Game against the Chargers.
yeah,
You
his
get
game
2
against
for
the
1
Chargers.
here.
It was a 33-30 win over San Diego. It was a close game, but Vick threw for 428 yards, 2 touchdowns, and actually rushed for a touchdown.
As good as he looked 1 week, he looked equally worse. 4 days later, he looked awful.
We'll talk about that next week.
But the reason why Vic had such a big game is because the Chargers kept scoring.
Yeah.
So every time the Eagles would get close, they would come right back and score on them. So Vic kept having to throw, run around, and that's why he had such a huge day. They never got the lead so where they can run with McCoy,
Right.
and he did have a great fantasy day.
I still like the weapons in Philly. I'm going to probably be saying that all year. Phillip Rivers, 419 yards, 3 touchdowns in the loss to Philly.
He looks like a rejuvenated quarterback. He looks like the guy from 4 or 5 years ago that was, one of the top 5 or 6 fantasy quarterbacks every
Yes.
year of the draft.
He was always a guy I liked as a player. He was a tough player. He never always would come in the press conferences afterwards and kill himself. I like guys like that. He had a horrible last 2 years, but like you said, changing coach, you never know what can happen. He's definitely at this point he could almost be a starter on the team.
Yeah.
Depending on who you have with him.
You know what's interesting, if you look back, at the decision that the Giants made, in trading for the pick and not
Manning.
taking Rivers and taking Manning, I guess enough time has passed where you can actually take a pretty good look at that trade and, obviously pretty good trade for the Giants.
Well, they won 2 Super Bowls.
Sign
How
that up
big
that,
can
that.
be?
Yeah.
No matter what.
As a Jet fan who's never won one in my lifetime,
Yeah.
it's nice to see the the Giants have won 2. They beat the Patriots at least, so happy with them.
They didn't win. You were alive at 69, huh?
I was 1 at 71.
Damn.
Yeah.
You?
I was 1 in 68, so I was.
So you enjoyed the
I was
season, I'm sure.
I was drooling at that point. It's,
All right. Yeah, you probably were. And occasionally do that to this day. All right, running backs, Doug Martin, 144 yards.
We all loved him last week.
We all loved
We
him
all
last
3 of us were saying
Yeah.
that he was going to run amok, and he did. And again, not to toot my own horn, but I lost on this one. But the Bucks, the last play of the game, I would have had the outright win on that
did.
one. They gave that game away.
They did.
well, the problem was they decided to go for a 48-yard field goal instead of punting it.
You gotta
And then
run.
the guy misses the kick, and they go right down and with no time on the clock and score. The coaching in some of these teams has been awful so far.
Awful. Here's one that came out of left field, Starks.
Well, he didn't start. No one expected him.
Totally
Lacey
out of
gets a
left field.
concussion,
Lacey
first
gets a
carry of the
concussion.
game, and here we
Well,
are.
I think Lacey, I actually liked a lot last week.
You had him as
I had him as my
either a stud or a sleeper, one of the
something
two.
like that. But Starks, 132 yards, a touchdown, 4 receptions. He's a guy that was all over the waiver wire this week. People picking him up at every opportunity. Darren McFadden, 129 yards, 4 receptions. Lynch, who I
was
believe-
wrong.
You
I
guys
was
were
way
betting
off
on that
Well,
one.
I actually called for a 100-yard game. He got 98.
Yeah, I know, but they stopped at a while.
But when you get 3 touchdowns, it
But he
all
got
looks
2
good.
touchdowns
Oh,
and he
2
got
touchdowns,
3
right.
receptions, so I will take full credit on that one. A couple of wide receivers to talk about, big days. Sean Jackson, 193 yards and a touchdown.
With his speed, it could happen any single week. There's no corner that can stick with him step for step.
And the
There's
2 Jones brothers, Julio with 11 catches and 182 yards and a touchdown. James Jones, 11 for 178.
And if James Jones had a little more speed, he would have had a 70-yard touchdown, but he
Right.
just doesn't have the speeds. But Julio Jones, I said from the beginning when we did our first show that this guy was going to be in the top 5 easily this year.
Yeah.
He's just progressing each year, and that's a guy that I love. I try to get him on all my teams this year.
Yeah. A couple of tight ends worthy of discussing. Jimmy Graham, who I'm sure we'll discuss.
Every week.
Probably every week.
The sad part of Jimmy Graham was I wound up losing in one of my leagues by 2 points, and he got tackled at the goal line.
Oh,
And that when those
lost a
things
touchdown
happen,
on that.
yeah, he lost
Yeah.
a touchdown. They didn't review it or anything. The
Yeah.
Saints just went up and ran another play. Didn't even go to review it.
That's
but
devastating.
that's a killer when those things happen. So.
Total killer. He did have 10 catches for 178 yards and a touchdown. but
And he
you're
was
right.
open all day.
Yeah,
They
he was
couldn't
open
cover
all
him.
day. Guy that had a big game that was reminiscent of his prime.
the fountain of youth.
Yeah, Antonio Gates, 8 catches, 124 yards.
Well, as long as San Diego's offense is doing well, Gates is going to get his catches.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the guy is he's a good player.
He's still
just
a
old.
matchup problem.
He's got an
Matchup
old
problem.
body for his age, but.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Band Crush. My boy Peyton is just on a roll right now, man. 30 for 43, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. In the big win over Eli and the Giants. You know, one thing I learned this week is that, as Mannings go, Eli is no Peyton.
0-3 against him.
It wasn't like a tremendous game for Manning. He almost managed the game more than he usually does, you know?
Listen,
And
he
it
could have
just-
done the same thing that he did week 1. He chose not to. I think he didn't want to show up his brother. I think he could have had, he could have padded those stats.
I think the Giants put 5 men in the box and they kept giving the ball to No Sean Marino.
Marino.
Forgot about me, just was running amok.
We talked about your guy, Jimmy Graham, and his big week. Charles?
Not a monster week, but he actually stepped up big in the fourth quarter, and he's catching 7 to 8 balls every single week. And the
Yeah.
Andy Reid that's why I love him.
Yeah.
In the Andy Reid offense, he's catching a touchdown every week.
Yeah.
He didn't want
He
to get a
caught one
week
this
3,
week.
which we'll talk about next week.
8 receptions
But he's-
last week.
Even
he's
even Thursday night too.
Yeah.
He didn't really run the ball well, but he caught a lot of passes.
Absolutely.
So, in a point per reception league, Charles is going to be a monster this year.
Guys, for the season right now, is averaging about 140 yards combined between receiving and rushing,
Yeah.
and getting a touchdown every week, and
Yeah.
averaging about 7 receptions a game.
He's been
and
gold.
it's hard to argue with it.
So let's get you guys caught up on what's going on with injuries. We've got Larry Fitzgerald expected to play today.
Yeah, he said he was going to play.
Yeah, I think.
I used him as one of my. He was my stud last week. Had 3
And I
catches
dudded
for
him.
20 yards.
Yeah, I had him as a dud.
Yeah. Rashard Mendenhall.
From what I understand, he's going to try to give it a go. He's supposed to play.
I'm pretty sure he's going to play.
Yeah, I would
And
expect
again,
him to.
they're playing the Saints, so you figure they're going to be behind. So Mendenhall, even if he does play, it's not going to be a big game for him. They're going to be have to
Have to
catch
throw to
up.
keep up.
That's a definite, Roberts, Floyd type game, and then hope Fitzgerald is healthy enough, and he should have a good game too.
Yeah. Julio Jones, a little banged up.
It's just precautionary. They're just
Yeah.
sitting him out. He's fine.
Yeah, I think he's listed as questionable, as is Roddy White. But
But Roddy White,
As
yeah.
well.
yeah,
Roddy White has a real injury.
Yeah,
Julio Jones is just resting a minor injury.
yeah. Ray Rice out today.
We have a caller.
All right. You want to take a quick break on the injuries, and let's see who we have on the line.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dennis. On line 1. Are you there, Dennis? All right, let's finish up injuries, and we'll get Dennis on the line. Ray Rice out today,
Supposed to be out 2 weeks.
probably 2 weeks. Brandon Marshall.
He'll play.
He'll play. It's
No
Sunday
problem.
night. There's a big game tonight for the Steelers.
It is.
The Bears have squeaked by twice already this year.
It is.
These you got to remember, in this day and age, these receivers are all prima donnas. So they're going to play. They're minor injuries. Brandon Marshall's
Well,
playing.
you know what? He's got a back injury, which you always kind of have to worry about that because that could be something that in the middle of the game flares up. But
You got to assume he's going to play.
you have to assume he's going to play. And
Can't sit a guy like that.
No.
He's just so big, though, that usually he's able to stiff arm whoever he has to and get out of bounds without getting a really hard hit.
Yeah. Brandon Whedon, we said, is out.
Ray Rice out today.
We said Ray Rice out today.
Brandon Whedon if Hoyer comes in, the Vikings could have a field day.
Yeah.
We'll see. You never know. Some of these guys come in and all of a sudden they're playing great, but you have to assume that the Vikings are going to be all over them.
Yeah. Des Bryant looks good to go today. I think he was listed as questionable at one point, but He looks like he's good to go.
He had an amazing week last week. Then
Yeah.
he dropped a big play in the fourth quarter, but for 3 quarters, he was uncoverable
Yeah.
last week.
It really was. I mean, and then they just stopped throwing the ball. I don't know why, but
Yeah, Eddie Lacy, we talked about a little bit already. He's listed as questionable. I don't see him having much of an impact today, even if
he
does
won't play.
I don't think he'll
He
play
won't
because of
play.
the concussion. I think they'll give him a week to sit.
Yeah, you know what? It makes sense. Why rush a guy back? You know, you can throw Starks in there and probably do pretty well.
And they have a bye week next week, so why would you risk playing a guy
No,
with a concussion with a
no,
bye
it's
week coming up?
Perfect week to get
Yeah.
him off.
Starks is a nice sleeper this week.
Yeah.
The Bengals have a tremendous defense, but I still like him as a flex guy. If you, especially if you have Lacy, you have to use him.
Yeah.
I picked him up in 3 of the 4 leagues I'm in. Starks, just in case. You never know.
Yeah, I picked him up in a couple of leagues,
And,
too.
and speaking of Starks, we do have a little, question across the email.
Oh, on our chat box.
Absolutely.
What do we got?
Moogie Bunch wants to know, Ben Tate or James Starks today, fellas, and doesn't want your answer because you have a vested interest, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I would probably take Starks. Houston's playing
The Ravens.
Ravens. I think the Ravens' secondary is a little weak. I think the Houston throws the ball a little more today. I would take a flyer on Starks, plus the fact that Foster is the starter and Tate comes in for 12 carries a game. I'm going to take the guy that's definitely carrying the ball. I'll take Starks.
I would take Starks as well. I
I'm
think
going to
it's kind of a
agree,
no-brainer.
even though you don't want my opinion, here it comes. I'm going to agree with that just because Starks is going to get the touches, the guaranteed touches. For no other reason but that, I'd go with Starks.
I think Moogie's trying to say you the mush. He wants you in the bathroom with the towel over your head, it
Yeah,
sounds like. That's what
basically.
he's saying.
I don't want that kid's face
He
looking
says go
at
to
this
the
kid's
bathroom.
face.
All right, a couple other guys. Andre Johnson looks like he's ready to roll today. T.Y. Hilton also probable and looking pretty good today. Maurice Jones-Drew out.
He won't play.
Out.
Just when you thought it couldn't get worse for the Jaguars, it did.
Yes. Blaine Gabbert, I believe, is out. Yes, he is ruled out.
I mean, I
It's
think
a
they're
big
better.
loss.
I think they're better with Henny anyway.
They are-
It's going to be a long day, no matter who's playing the quarterback there.
Yeah.
Playing in Seattle is like impossible.
At least Henny can throw the ball.
They don't lose at home.
Yeah. Tannehill should be okay.
He'll play, and the Dolphins are going up against a banged-up Falcon team. Dolphins could get off 3-0. Very interesting.
Amendola still out, no shot there.
No, he's much more hurt than that.
And he didn't. And the thing about him, he didn't go for the surgery. If he goes for the surgery, he's definitely out 6 to 8 weeks. He didn't go. Maybe he plays next week, but he's just going to get hurt again. It doesn't matter. I would not want him on my team.
No, I'd have to agree with that. And then in New Orleans, we have Mark Ingram, who is questionable against
He
the,
split so many carries between Sproles and
very
Thomas that you
crowded
don't really.
backfield.
I mean, this is the guy that actually started before Trent Richardson, who we talked about has not really emerged as a dominant back. He can't really beat out Pierre Thomas on a regular basis,
Right.
even when he has good camps.
And the Saints have not changed their offense one bit the last 5 years. It's the same thing. They don't even try to feature the running game.
Sproles
they
is the
just-
only running back worth getting because he's going to
Because
catch
in on
balls.
Yeah, he catches a ton of balls. He always goes to him too to check.
And you know what? As long as Breeze is playing in that town, you're not going to see anything change. And why would you change
Yeah.
it?
No, you're right.
Why would you change it? Santonio Holmes looks like he's a go.
Doesn't matter.
Well, you know what? I think Holmes at some point is going to be usable. Just because of the amount of targets that the guy gets, I think he'll be usable at some point. On the other side of the ball there, we've got Vernon Davis, who going to be a game time decision. Not sure.
All signs point that he's going to play. The way he was talking during the week, he's going to play, and I would expect him to play. If he doesn't play, I'd be really shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're coming off a
Off
loss, a blowout
too.
loss.
If they had won in Seattle last week, maybe he would have. Maybe he sits this game, but they lost. There's no way I see him sit.
Yeah.
And you can't sit a guy like that unless you have somebody like, we talked about Cameron or something. Even Cameron this week, he's got Hoyer thrown to him. So I don't even,
Yeah.
unless you have a decent backup tight end, I wouldn't even consider sitting Davis.
Yeah. And finally, Malcolm Floyd out with a neck injury. He's definitely not going to play today.
He's probably not going to play for a while.
Probably get
That was the
Wow.
worst injury of the weekend. He was out
Yeah.
cold on the ground.
Yeah, that was a rough one. All right, you know what? Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes on Fantasy Football Code Red.
Stop putting putting it off and start painting it up today at Ben's Paint Station, featuring Benjamin Moore paints, Sickens, wood finishes, paints, and professional paint supplies, ideal for contractors and homeowners, stain paints and epoxies, family owned and operating, in business for over 55 years, professional and experienced help, located at 2 locations, 55B Route 25, Coram, Long Island, New York, and 1495 Plaza Montauk Highway, Mastic, New York. Call them at 775-7435 and 775-8135. Ben's Paint Station, featuring Benjamin Moore Paints. Log on to the Enravio Advertisers page today.
Enravio.com.
East End Screen Printing and Embroidery. Shirts for as low as $3 with print. 631-281-TEES. That's 631-281-TEES. 1355F Montauk Highway, Mastic, Long Island, New York. Go to eastendsilkscreenprinting.com for more info. Sud City Car Wash, Montauk Highway in Mastic, Long Island, New York. $9.99 early bird special Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. Phone 395-6114. Sud City Car Wash. Hand washes, hand waxes, and detailing. Interior cleaning, brushless, car wash club. Simonized products. Sud City Car Wash. Montauk Highway in Mastic, Long Island, New York. Glitz and Glam Boutique. Book your little princess's party today. Glamorous birthday parties. Girls' Day out packages. Hair accessories and jewelry. 5A Canal Street, Center Riches, Long Island, New York. Phone 631-909-7428.
Good Times Magazine, New York's best entertainment paper for 43 years. Check out their calendar for all the latest music info, including New York City, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. Studio News brings you the biggest news about the hottest artists and sounds. Technobeat is your guide to electronica, techno, house, and dubstep. Packtrack keeps you up to date on the biggest events at the area's performing arts centers and theaters. Good Times Magazine gives you all this and more. It's bi-weekly and it's free. Pick up your copy today or visit goodtimesmag.com. Termite Marine Contracting offers all stages of dock building, including brand new docks, repairs on existing docks, pole setting, dredging, and decking. Termite Marine Contracting covers the south shore of Long Island from Massapequa to West Islip. With more than 25 years experience, full crews, and the right equipment for any job. Got a job you want done right? Call Termite Marine Contracting at 516-449-4567. That's 516-449-4567, or follow us on Facebook. Termite Marine Contracting. When you want it built right. If you want to increase business, you've got to advertise. Contact Resonant Voiceovers for an effective, affordable commercial spot. Our production, audio, and editing personnel will create top-quality recordings to promote your business. Start getting internet exposure for your business today, right here on Enravio.com. To contact Resonant Voiceovers, go to the Enravio Advertisers and Sponsors page and click on Resonant Voiceovers. Resonant Voiceovers, when you want your message to resonate.
Hey, dude, it's me again. You know, Village Music Shop in Mastic. Anyway, you all know my dog, Mr. Big. Yeah. Well, Dudes and Dudettes Village Music Shop has been in business for over 37 years, serving musicians with the best products and service around. Oh, they have private lessons on all instruments and in all styles of music in their new state-of-the-art digital teaching studios, or the excellent sales and service of guitars, drums, school band instruments, amps, PAs, as well as sheet music, books, and accessories. Basically, dudes, everything musical, right, Big? Yeah. Chill out. Village Music has rentals on all instruments, even PA systems for your parties and barbecues. Oh, cool. Dudes, Village Music Shop never has a sale on stuff because every day our prices are lower than all the competition. Stores, internet, whatever, guaranteed. Yeah. So come to Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic, phone 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Anyway.
And now back to the music on InRavio.com.
I'm sitting in a room made up of only big white walls, and in the hall there are people looking through the window.
Check 1, check 1, 2. You got me yet?
Check 1, 2. Check. I can hear my. That must be good, right? Good? All right. We're ready to go back on. Yeah, let me just welcome everybody back. Code red. Just want to remind everybody we're taking phone calls. 855-446-7284 is the number. You can also log in on our chat box and tell us what's on your feeble minds. And speaking of feeble minds, I think we have somebody up there right now.
The General has a question.
Oh, the General.
Wants to know Dallas defense or Cincinnati's defense. He thinks Dallas because the Bengals are playing Green Bay, wants to get our opinion on this.
Well, I first say, if you have sacks in your league, if that counts, Cincinnati's going to get sacks because Rodgers has a horrible offensive line. The only reason why he plays well is because he gets rid of the ball so fast. So I would stick with Cincinnati at home. Dallas did have a great game against the Giants first week. The Giants turned the ball over a lot. But the Rams are more close to the vest. They're not like a wide-open offense where they're going to turn the ball over constantly. So if I had to choose, I would say Cincinnati, but if you start Dallas, it's not, a killer either.
I concur. I actually think Cincinnati's the better bet this week also. The sacks will come into play. I think that Rodgers does throw picks. He does get
Not a lot,
intercepted
but
here and there.
you know, he could fumble it on a sack and they could take it back.
Absolutely.
I'm going to withhold comment on this one because apparently the general is a little fearful of the Admiral this week, doesn't want my opinion, and maybe he's afraid I'm going to try to throw him a little curveball. General?
He wants the scene out of Bronx Tale when you're in the bathroom with the towel over your head.
Good luck today, Jay.
And we also have a phone call. Dennis from Charlotte's on the line for us.
Dennis.
Hey,
Dennis?
fellas.
Hey, how you doing, Dennis?
Hey, we're doing all right. How you guys feeling about this Giant game today down here?
Oh, I'll tell you, I have feelings. Can I go first, guys?
Go ahead, take it away.
All right, here's what I'm feeling right now. Number one, Dennis, the Giants need this game desperately. I think the Carolina defense is kind of nicked up, especially the secondary. I think that if the Giants can establish any kind of run game today, things are going to open up for Eli. He's going to be able to get the ball deep to Cruz. He's going to be able to get the ball deep to Nix. He's going to throw underneath to the tight end and to Randall might play into the offense. I like the Giants today. I like them a lot.
I actually, you know what? Up here, everybody's talking about how desperate the Giants are. So are the Panthers.
Both
Panthers
teams
should
are.
be 2-0.
They are.
Panthers should be 2-0. They gave away the game against Buffalo last week. That pass interference call at the end on the pick by Keegley was a little bit, that cost them the game there.
Yeah, that was a freaky ending.
That was a freaky ending for the game. I think it's going to be high scoring. If you were going to, last year the Giants went down there and beat them.
They ran all over them, though.
Yeah.
That's the difference. The Giants really ran all over them.
Well, last year they
do
started.
that?
Well, that's the problem is the Giants, they're not able right now to establish the run. If they can do that in any way, shape, or form, it's going to open things up for Eli, and Eli will have a big day.
Last year, no Knicks last year. Ramses Barton had his coming out party in that game.
Right.
Andre Brown had his coming out party
I
in
had
that
him
game.
that day. He had a tremendous game.
And,
I think you're going to see enough out of Wilson today, that'll give it'll give Manning what he needs in terms of being able to air the ball out a little bit.
I see this game as 35-31, somewhere in that range. I
I
think
can see
both
that.
teams will score. It's a toss-up game at the end. I think everybody up here always thinks that the Giants are the hungry team that needs it. Carolina's equally hungry. I think it's going to be a very good game.
You going to the game today, Dennis?
Yeah. I'm down here now. I'm going to be heading in a little bit.
If I'm recalling, if I'm remembering correctly, you were in Indy last week, weren't you?
I was in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago for
2
opening
weeks ago.
day. As you know, I have an affection for the Oakland Raiders.
Yes.
And hey, listen, I thought that game was going to be a blowout, but honestly, that was a game the Raiders probably should have pulled out and
Could have won that game.
And we told you not to go.
But you know what? You know what they say, guys. Good teams win those games.
Right.
And they just didn't. They just didn't have enough to get it done. And I'll tell you, Andrew Luck is, from watching him in person, the guy, I did not think he had the escapability that he does.
He does.
They had him wrapped up a couple of times, and all of a sudden he comes out of a pile.
Yeah.
And, he gains 10, 15 yards. And then, of course, that last scramble of the game, he went 20 yards to take it in for the winning touchdown. Hey, listen, I walked out of there feeling a little bit better about the Raiders, but like I said, good teams win those games, and they just didn't. From a local standpoint here in Charlotte, I'll tell you, there's not a lot of confidence in these Panthers for a team that probably should have been 2-0. A lot of talk about Cam Newton and his and feeling that that has he reached his potential? Does he have the ability to really master an offense?
Yeah, really. There already some second guessing going on, huh?
What's that? They're down on him a lot because they just don't feel
Well,
that
what happened was Kaepernick passed him by, Wilson passed him by, Luck passed him by. A couple of years ago, he's the flavor of the month. These guys have monster years and lead teams to new heights.
Look at who he's gone against. I mean, his first game was against Seattle. Could
have won that game.
He could have won
Should've
that game.
They
but
fumbled inside
that
the
was
10.
a rough matchup for him, though. That was a rough matchup.
We all said he was going to have a bad game.
Right.
So,
we did.
But the problem with Carolina is their offense is a mess. They don't know if they're a running team or throwing team. Cam's not even running with the ball. He's not. He's a beast.
Yeah.
He's not even running this year. I don't know what they're doing.
So Dan, where are you going to be next week? That's what I want to know.
Next week, next week I'm actually home, but I will be phoning in from from a different location a little later in the year.
Yeah, the funny thing is that you're like the guy on College Game Day with the Washington State flag that just goes
I do
wherever,
wanna hear you.
wherever they go, and then it has the flag up. You're all over the place, man.
Listen,
I
man,
think it's fun to keep it a little quiet and call in as a surprise from a different location.
well, listen,
I
we
gotta-
may have
I
to
gotta
bring you
ask
on the
before I
show as
go,
a
though.
regular. We'll bring
I
you
gotta
on
ask
as
you guys-
our
I
roving
appreciate
correspondent.
that.
Yeah, right.
No, I love it. I do have to
Sideline
ask you
reporter.
guys though. Steve,
Enjoy the
I gotta
game.
ask before I go.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Just give me a quick rundown. What do you think? Oakland at Denver tomorrow, Monday night.
I wouldn't want to be Oakland.
I think it's going to be closer than people think. I think that the Raiders keep that game close for about 3
It
quarters.
is a 15 spread, which surprised me that it was
Yeah.
that much.
Yeah.
I think the Raiders are going to cover it.
I
I
think,
think so.
I
I
think
don't
they might
expect to win.
cover it, but I think Peyton's going to have his way with them.
Well, yeah, I have to agree.
I
have
think
to agree.
McFadden keeps them in the game. I think McFadden
I
has a
agree.
big game against the Denver defense that is not as good as it was last year with the guys that are missing.
Yeah. I still think
All right,
Peyton's
fellas,
going
I
to have his way.
appreciate it.
All right, Dan, thanks for the call, man. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll talk to you soon.
All
Bye-bye.
right, have a good day.
Hey guys, happy birthday on the football
Whoa.
show. Mike got 2 of these already. He's collected them. He's put them on the mantle.
Look at this. We've got,
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you for doing it.
we have, thank you. A tradition here at InRavio.com. Chuck, with every new show, brings a little ice cream cake.
Nice job.
I like
Good
that.
touch.
Very cool.
We'll have that.
Show, so you get a birthday cake.
Thank you, Chuck. I won't put this in front of Darren's face.
Yeah, it might be gone by
Even
the
though I
time
was-
the show's over.
I might down that thing in about 3 seconds.
All right, anyway, let's get into our studs, duds, and sleepers. Let's do a quick recap on last week. My stud quarterback last week was Carson Palmer. I had a good day. 248, 1 touchdown in a win over Detroit.
He was okay. I mean, he
Wasn't a
did
stud
everything
day.
right. Would have called him a stud, though, with 1
Yeah,
touchdown.
It was an okay day.
250 yards, and I believe you were the one that called that win, right?
I did. I like Carolina. I liked Arizona
yeah.
last week
Yeah.
outright.
Yeah, you had.
No, I was just going to say, it's not a dud day, it's not a stud day, it was an okay day.
Okay.
Solid
all right.
day.
All right. Who'd you have?
I had Cam Newton, so again, similar thing. He had 2 touchdowns. I thought he was have a rushing touchdown, but he didn't even run the ball.
Yeah.
220-something yards, I think he had, and 2 touchdowns. One was a bonus one, if you have that in your league. So again, it wasn't a stud day. It wasn't a bad day
wasn't a
by
bad
any
day.
means, but it was okay.
I had Eli.
If you recall,
Non-stud day.
If you recall, I went against Eli and took the Denver defense in our little head-to-head draft here. Only
That I
because, listen, man, that you won, but we'll get into that later. If you can brag later.
I'll break now and later.
Yeah, Eli 4 interceptions. All right, my stud last week at running back was Steven Jackson. He went in, caught an 8-yard pass for touchdown, and that was the end of him.
He was a stud for the first 3 minutes of the game.
He looked outstanding early on. He was on his
stud
way to a big day.
on the first drive, and then he's gone.
But again, that's a thing about this guy. He does get hurt. Even though he's built like, a house, I've had him in the past years. This guy, for some reason, he gets these
Yeah.
hamstring injuries and stuff.
I mean, he went a couple of years where he kind of proved he could stay on the field, but
He has had a
he's
past
always an
history.
injury risk. Who'd you have?
I had McCoy, who for some reason the Eagles could not get ahead of the Chargers, so he only had 11 carries. He had 100 yards receiving, though.
Right.
Which you can expect. Of course, Thursday night he was off to the races as well. But McCoy is a guy that's, he's going to be one of the top 2, if not the first. He could be the number 1. If Peterson doesn't go crazy this year, I could see him being the number 1 running
He
back.
looks
Absolutely.
so good. Every time he touches the ball, his cutbacks, he's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I had Doug Martin. Huge day. We already discussed it.
We discussed
He
it a
was
little
very
bit.
big for
Everybody
me.
was high on him last week, and he came through. I had Des Bryant as my stud receiver, and
you were right.
quite studly he was with 9 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown.
And it couldn't have been even a bigger day.
He
For
dropped
some
a
reason,
big play.
Yeah.
They didn't really go to him at the
And
end.
the Chiefs played a man-on-man with Brandon Flowers, who's giving up about 5 inches all game.
Yeah.
abusing
And they
him.
just abused him.
How about you?
I had Randall Cobb again. This guy, I said from the beginning of the year, might not be a top 5. He's going to be that next guy on the list. Rodgers loves him. He's got a real cohesion with this guy. Always open. Every time I look, he's open in the middle of the field.
They've got some very dangerous weapons for Rodgers.
I went with Larry Fitzgerald, who did not have a stud day at all. Only had 3 catches. Did not have a big day. And he was banged up. I thought he would do well against suspect at best Lions secondary. Cardinals won, but it wasn't because of Larry Fitzgerald last week.
Right.
No, he didn't even play basically in the fourth quarter.
No, they didn't even use him.
All right, my tight end was Kyle Rudolph. 3 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. That's, I guess, borderline.
But that
The
was a
touchdown
good
helps you
call.
out. The
touchdown
touchdown gets
helps
you.
me out.
You didn't take one of the top 5 tight ends, so you get more credit for that if the guy scores. So that's how I look at it. Could have been easily put you as your sleeper for the week. So.
Right. Probably would have been a better sleeper pick.
Yeah, I had Julius Thomas, who I was in love with before the season started, and he had a good game, nothing crazy, 6 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown. But again, anytime a tight end scores, that's a good game.
Absolutely.
I had Greg Olson, which made me look like a genius because he had a monster game last week.
Great
He was
game.
open all day, huge day, and got in the end zone and did everything he was supposed to do. Double-digit catches, did everything right.
Nice. My dud last week, my quarterback dud last week, Roethlisberger. He played okay, 250 yards, a touchdown. Not a horrible day.
It was average, but he didn't give you anything.
That's
He didn't turn the ball over, which was surprising.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I had him as a dud, and he didn't turn the ball over. So
If they don't fumble inside the 20 in the first quarter, it could be a different game. Teams lead them down there.
Yeah.
I had Stafford, who had a good game, so he really wasn't a dud. He wasn't awesome, but whenever you have Calvin Johnson on your team, you shouldn't be a dud. But I went with it.
I went with Breeze, and he only threw the 1 touchdown. He did have that late drive, so he got himself over 300 yards. Outside of that, though, he didn't have a big day. He turned the ball over. I was pretty close to being right that he was somewhat of a dud for Drew Brees.
For Brees.
Drew
Not
Brees,
for
that's
whatever.
That's a dud.
I
for
thought
Brees.
he would struggle, and he did.
Yeah.
That was a good
My
call.
running back was Arian Foster. He did get 19 carries, 79 yards. About 4 yards a carry.
Got in the
1
end zone.
touchdown
And a 2-point conversion he had, too, at the end.
and 1 reception.
For him, though,
For him,
it's not a
that's
great
it's
game.
not a good game.
Pedestrian.
It's a good
It's
game.
not a game. It's an average game.
Yeah. I had C.J. Spiller as my dud, and up till he had 2 20-yard runs at the end of the game to make his stats look better. But again, I don't know what the Bills are doing. Fred Jackson's scoring the touchdown. He's playing half the snaps. I don't know what's going on in Buffalo.
No,
So I'm staying away from all those guys.
I went with Marshawn Lynch, and I was wrong.
And
sir,
I disagreed.
correct. I didn't like Lynch. I thought that San Francisco would key on him, and yet they did, and it didn't matter.
You had every reason to believe what you believe, though. I just went on a gut.
Well, the fact is that Lynch consistently does well against the Niners.
He does.
I
One of
went
few
against
guys.
the trend. Don't go against trends. in
But
the
you-
NFL. You just can't do it. Doesn't work.
Yeah, but you went with, with
I
the
went my gut.
logic. With the
I went my
logic.
gut.
The logic said he probably was going to have a big day. My receiver, my dud was Colston. He caught, 4 catches, 63 yards, no touchdowns. That's pretty.
Caught the game-winning catch, I guess, to set him up for the field goal.
Okay, but
Prior
from a
to that, though,
fantasy-
he was invisible.
It was
From
3
a-
for 30 going into that catch.
Yeah,
He caught a 30-yard catch at the
From
end.
a fantasy perspective, he was a dud.
I had Larry Fitzgerald as a dud. I nailed that on the head. Just knew when he was banged up, I figured he'd be more of a decoy than anything else. So
Yeah.
that's why I went with that.
I went with Wallace on Miami. They had a big day.
Monster game.
Over 100
Yes.
yards, a score.
Yeah.
Did it
He looked
all.
great, actually.
Played
He
really
looked
well.
good. He looked really good.
Between Lynch and Wallace, I really cemented
your
myself as a
duds, your
genius
duds
on this
weren't-
show.
yeah.
I should have played my duds.
Let's go with our sleepers from last week. I had Tannehill. I had a good game, 319 yards, touchdown in the win over Indy.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
As a sleeper, that's not bad.
I had Cutler, and I said he'll have 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nailed that on the head.
Yeah.
And he the game-winning drive at the end. Marcellus Bennett, out of nowhere,
monster.
is a stud tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, he looked great.
Listen, I loved him last year with the Giants. I was really sorry to see him go, and I think he's going to have a good year.
But he really wasn't this with the Giants. He
No.
was okay.
He could have
But
been.
he looks like a stud right
He's
now.
a legit second option for Cutler that he
Yeah.
hasn't had. I mean, he buried behind Witten in Dallas. Got
Yeah,
to play
true.
occasionally.
Yeah.
For the Giants, you got Cruz, you got Nix, you got Randy, you got all these guys running patterns all over the place. And you still had a running game last year with Bradshaw to
Right,
an extent.
right.
And then, once Brown emerged, now he's really legitimately like
He's
the
worthy of
second,
a
third
star.
option because
He
Forte
is.
catches 10 balls a week too.
He's
We
a
don't
star-
talk about
yeah.
him much, but he catches 10 balls a
He's
week
a
also.
starter, and if you have him, he's a starter unless you have somebody like Graham or Gronkowski or somebody like that.
I was awful last week with this. I thought Josh Freeman would have a good day. I lost a 60-yard touchdown because Donald Penn can't line up
Yeah, it's
within 2
Vincent
yards
Jackson.
of the within 2 yards of the center. Outside of that, he had less than 200 yards. He did have a score.
I think
He
Freeman's a
didn't
better
play
sleeper
bad.
this week.
He didn't play badly last week. He just didn't play well. He
Well,
didn't.
that's what the Bucks are doing so far. They're not doing enough
To
you
win
know.
these
Even
games.
Martin, he had 144 yards.
They could
which
be
is good,
2
but
and
he
0.
didn't score.
They could be 2 and 0. The Bucks.
And they'll be 2 and 0.
They could be 2 and 0. My sleeper last week at running back was Eddie Lacy, who went down the same path
And
as
he went to sleep.
as
He was sleeping.
Steven Jackson. I think he had 1 carry for 10 yards and got the concussion. So
You're not even giving yourself a chance when a guy gets hurt that early.
No,
so.
you have no shot.
I had Ahmad Bradshaw, who I said would have 100 yards, total yards and a touchdown. And I nailed that on the head too.
Good job.
So 2 for 2 for me on the sleepers.
I went D'Angelo Williams. Did not have a big day. He had under 100 yards, but did not really turn it up. I thought they would run all over the Bills. They back and forth. It seemed like they passed the ball a lot more than they ran the ball. He didn't get a ton of carries last week. I think he was like 20 carries for.
He almost broke one though.
He has the
almost
speed.
broke one. He just missed it. He stumbled coming through the line. He would have been
Exactly.
gone for a 70-yard touchdown.
Absolutely. That would have made me look like a genius. Instead, it was a so-so game. He was
So-so, yeah.
okay, but not great.
Well, you know what they say. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. So
When we get to
big
the
ass
head-to-head,
someone.
when we get to the head-to-head, we'll discuss the.
We'll discuss that then.
one.
All right, wide receivers. I had Marlon Brown. He had a good day. I mean, it was 4 for 45 and a touchdown. Not bad as a sleeper.
But a good pick, though, and he scored. So when anytime the guy scores, I had Cecil Shorts, who had 8 catches for 93 yards. So that's a solid day. And considering the team is awful, to me it was a risky play. But I threw it out there, and he had a solid game.
I went with Ruben Randall. I mean, the Giants were playing from behind. Did not break the 100-yard barrier like I had hoped he'd do. I mean,
I like
catches.
Randall though.
I mean, he was open. I mean, just the Giants just did not execute at all last week.
No, horrible. And then finally, I had Brandon Myers as my sleeper last week. He caught 6 balls, 74 yards, did not score. He's kind of filling the role that Bennett filled last year.
But he's been very active.
Active.
Garbage time, he's the best that you're going to find. They dump it to him for 8-yard garbage receptions all day long. You're going against him, you're afraid to have the lead late.
Did the same thing in Oakland last year. The Raiders would be behind, and Palmer threw them the whole time.
Yeah.
I also want to say, we didn't do dud tight ends, but I did have Witten as my dud tight end last week, and he was invisible. 2
I
catches.
had Gresham, he didn't do much either. Tight end was like my best position of the whole week. Who was your sleeper tight end?
I had Pettigrew. He was a total 0. I think he had 3 catches for 30 yards. This guy has talent. I don't know what is going on. He's a big dude. He can catch it. He's like Finley, the poor man's Jermichael Finley at this point. I don't know what's going on with him.
I went with Fleener. Fleener had a big day. He had a big day.
Should have had 2 touchdowns.
He should have.
One was called back.
I know. I mean,
nailed that one.
Fleener is going to be a matchup nightmare for the rest of this year. He's gonna have a big year.
He is.
Especially with the addition of Richardson, that's just gonna open up the field for Fleener because Richardson catches the ball out of the backfield.
Absolutely.
There's a lot going on there.
Absolutely.
He shouldn't be available in your league. If Fleener's available and you need a tight end, pick him up.
I picked up Julius Thomas, and then I followed up the following week and picked up Fleener as well.
So there you go. You didn't
I
need
have
to
them
draft a
both.
tight end.
I'm not allowing literally, it was a defensive move, not to allow somebody else to get an offensive tight end.
That's part of the
and I
game,
can use them as a flex in a bye week, and I'm going to.
Absolutely.
Sometimes using 2 tight ends is not devastating.
I've done it.
I picked up Starks this week. Somebody else had Eddie Lacy. Why are you helping somebody else? Help yourself.
All right, let's get into our studs for this week. I'm going Stafford this week against Washington. The Washington defense has just been pitiful.
Shredded. Rodgers could have had over 500 yards. They ran the clock out at the end.
They're giving up a league-high 30 points per week, fantasy points per week, against opposing quarterbacks.
And I'm going to tell you, not so fast.
No.
The Lions have lost 21 straight in Washington. 21 straight.
So you're saying,
I
thought you said don't buck the trends.
I'm not bucking the trends. I'm saying that the Lions will not win that game.
Okay.
I'm not saying Stafford won't play well. I think the Redskins will play better.
I think
That's all I'm
Stafford's
saying.
going to have a big day. He also is not getting any kind of pressure. I'm not sure that he's been sacked this year yet.
I don't know that off the top of my
He
head.
threw off his back foot last year pretty much every throw. This year he hasn't really been doing that.
Right.
He's got a big arm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You got to like Stafford.
Who's your quarterback?
I'm going with the ball. I have RG3. I know
I
Porterhouse liked him too. It's desperation time. Really, I could see Mike Shanahan even getting fired after this game if they lose. Because the owner's a nutcase.
Yeah.
So Redskins being 0-3 with a lot of expectations, I have to assume that they're going to have a big day. Plus, he said he's going to run the ball more. So it could be the old RG3 of last year. I'm going to say he does it.
I'm going to go back on the horse and go with Eli again. I think against Carolina's defense, he'll play well. I think it's a desperate game.
I'm comfortable
I liked
with
RG3, but so that I could be a little different than the Commander, I'm going to go with Eli.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that this week. I think Eli does well today. My running back this week, Joyke Bell, again, against that ridiculously bad Skins defense. They've been horrible against the run. They've given up a league worst 351 yards on the ground so far this year.
Plus, Bush is not going to play.
Bush is
As far
not
as
going
we
to
know,
play.
he's not playing.
Yeah, Bush is not going to play. And I actually made this pick before I knew Bush was out.
Right, so it makes it even better.
I really like Bell this week.
Commander?
Commander's going to go with DeMarco Murray. Now, I have him on one of my teams. He's done nothing for me. But the last time they played the Rams, over 200 yards rushing. That, you know, I don't know what Dallas is doing either with their offense. You have to run the ball in this league to open up the pass, and they didn't do it against the Chiefs. I have to think that one of these weeks they're going to start running the ball more.
They were the better team against the Chiefs. They really should have won the game.
Right.
I mean, the Chiefs were always in the lead. Don't get me wrong. I mean, not always in the lead, but they took it over in the early fourth quarter and held on to it. But Dallas should have put the foot to the throat a little early and should have been up by 2 scores.
They had a first and goal at the 3-yard line, didn't score, kicked a field goal, and then Bailey missed, I think, a field goal later on.
It was in the 40s. It wasn't it wasn't a chip shot, but nonetheless, I'm going with McFadden. Okay. And you know why? I just think that the spread is too high. I think that McFadden keeps him in the game, and I think the Bronco defense is not as good as people think. When Von Miller gets back, the loss of Dumerville hurts them. I mean, but when Miller gets back, I think they become a little bit stronger. But right now, I think they're going to be able to read option them and stay in the game and control the clock.
I don't see them get. Yeah, you know what? My problem there is I just don't see them having the ball enough.
Well, the other thing, too, he will catch balls out of the backfield. So if the Raiders get behind, he's still going to be on the field. So I like it. It's a reach.
I honestly think if the Raiders get behind, they'll still run the ball. I don't think that they have the passing game to really just get back in it that quickly. I think they're going to still try to eat clock and just stay in the game and hope for a mistake. I think that's the way that they have a chance to win it.
Right. All right, my receiver this week, Stevie Johnson against the Jets.
Owns him.
You know what? He owns them. Manuel loves him. I think he has a big game.
It's hard to argue with that. What do you got, Commander?
I'm going to go with Marshawn Lynch, and this is it's a reach.
We're doing receivers right now.
Oh, right. Sorry. I'm A.J. Green, sorry. I lost you for a second. I'm going to go A.J. Green. The only reason I'm doing
not a reach.
It's not a reach. Any guys that are this good and have bad games, they always come back with a bigger game. So I'm going to say A.J. Green has a really huge day today.
Okay. I'm going with Hakeem Nicks. And the reason why I say it is he's going back to Carolina. Was hurt last year when he went back there, and Ramsey's Barton caught all his passes and his touchdown. This week, I think Nicks goes for 150 and a score.
You're going heavy Giants this week. I'm going heavy Detroit this week. I like it. My tight end this week is Jason Witten against St. Louis. I just see him catching 8 to 10 balls, probably 100 yards, probably a touchdown.
I could see it.
St. Louis, not a great pass.
And again, he had a bad week the week before, so you have to assume a guy that's this good comes back and has a good game.
Yeah.
Commander?
I have Tony Gonzalez. He's been very quiet so far this year, even though the Falcons are scoring. So I say with the banged-up receivers and no Steven Jackson today, I think Gonzo's the feature guy this week, so I'll go with Tony Gonzalez as my stud tight end.
I'm going to go with Kyle Rudolph. I think that Rudolph bounces. I think that they're going to put so much emphasis on trying to stop Adrian Peterson that Rudolph will find himself open a few times during the heart of the field.
That makes sense. All right, our duds for the week. I'm going with Tom Brady as my quarterback this week. You know what? I think Tampa Bay's defense is going to give him a little bit of a hard time. He's going without Amendola. There's no Gronkowski.
Revis Island, if he stays with Edelman the whole game, who's he going to throw to?
I think that's what's going to happen, And in fact, the Tampa defense has not allowed a passing touchdown yet.
No, they've been playing well.
The Tampa defense is good. It's a good defense.
And I think that the Pats are going to get better as the season gets on, but I think it's patchwork right now. I really do. What do you got?
I'm going with Phillip Rivers, coming off 2 good games. I'm going to say Tennessee's been playing very good defense. They should have beaten Houston last week.
Gave that game away.
They outplayed them. They
Gave the game
totally
away.
outplayed them. So I'm going to say the Tennessee defense is tough again this week, and Phillip Rivers will be my dud for the week.
I think before Alden Smith gets suspended for 4 games for all of his substance, his alcoholism and every other offense that he has, and the fact that
Yeah, he will get suspended.
the fact that the 49ers don't discipline, or any NFL team, not just the 49ers, don't discipline their players when they do something wrong.
Doesn't
always
play the
makes me
first
laugh.
half, something.
But
right?
they don't do a thing.
No, they don't.
I think that Luck is going to have a bad game as Alden Smith enjoys his last game of freedom before he gets suspended. I think that the Colts will have a hard time protecting him. I think Richardson's going to be a little tired, even though he'll play a lot. I think that they're going to have a hard time. And I think Luck, I like Brady as well, but to go different than the Admiral, I'm going to go with Luck having a tough day today.
And I have Luck in 1 league. I have him in 3 of my 4 leagues, but I'm actually sitting him over. I'm starting Schaub in Baltimore over him. Only because
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I don't want to go down with the ship with the same quarterback in all the leagues, so
Yeah.
I mixed it up with one of them just to see.
I don't blame you.
All right, my dud this week, man that's gotten a lot of attention, Trent Richardson. You know what? He's going to be a stud.
Moving on.
Yeah. He's going to be a stud in Indy, not this week. You know, we talked about some of the reasons already, but he's going against a very tough San Francisco defense. You know, one of the toughest defensive fronts in the game. He's not ready to really, you know, participate in that offense yet. He's been running around all week. I don't see him having a big game. I think he's going to be a little bit of a disappointment in his, you know, in his first game for Indy. But there's, you know, plenty of time for him to be a great
Start
player
moving
there.
forward. And
Yeah.
another thing, a lot of these coaches, they just throw things out there so the other teams game plan for them.
Yeah.
So Pagano said that Richardson, as long as he's ready, he's going to play. And a lot of times they just do that so the 49ers watch film on him and
Right,
stuff.
right.
But I'm agreeing with you. I don't think he has a big day today.
Yeah. What do you got?
That's me. I had jumped the gun before with Lynch, but this is my my dud. I'm going to say Lynch had a great game. Big letdown for Seattle, playing a horrible Jacksonville team. I could see the backups, Turbin and Christine Michael, getting a lot more carries this week. So he might have like 75 yards. He might get a goal line touchdown. But I'm going to say he doesn't, and they blow them out enough where he's not even playing it, and it's a non-factor.
That game has a chance to be a big blowout.
I'm going to go on the limb and say Arian Foster does not have a good day today. I know that he's starting to emerge himself again and take over for Tate, where they said they were going to split him early on. I honestly think that Raven D is stronger in the front 7 than it is in the back 4. I think that Ed Reed gets an unwelcome visit back home today when he comes back and plays for the Texans. And I think that Foster has a really tough game. I don't think he gets in the end zone this week.
Okay. All right, my wide receiver dud this week is Cecil Shorts. Listen, I'm not playing him against the Seattle defense in Seattle.
Like Hoyer as a quarterback.
I don't like him at all today.
That's good. I'm going to go with Jordy Nelson. He's had 2 good games in a row. Again, I like to do the trends, or the odds, let's say. When guys have 2 good games in a row, you got to expect he's not going to have another one. You know, some guys go off, but studs like A.J. Green scored 9 weeks in a row. But that guy's one of the top guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Jordy Nelson has, like 60 yards, no touchdown today. I'm going to say dud for me, for Jordy Nelson.
I'm going to go with Antonio Brown. No real reason, just a hunch. I think that he'll have trouble on one side. I think Emmanuel Sanders will play well on the other, and Miller will be good in the middle. I just think that Brown will be the guy that's the off receiver this week for Pittsburgh.
And I feel the same way about my tight end pick this week, Dallas Clark. He's going against a tough defense, and I just think he's going to be the guy kind of left out of the mix today.
I go with Greg Olson. I know Porterhouse had him as his stud last week. You had him as a stud, right?
I did.
Yeah, that was a great call. But just something tells me that the Panthers have to start running the ball, and then Cam getting more involved in the running game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say for that reason that Olsen is not going to score this week. I'll use him as my dud.
I'm going to go with Julius Thomas, and it's only reason why I'm saying it because I think everybody's so high on him right now. I think that there's a legit chance that he doesn't get in the end zone this week. I think he'll still catch some balls. I think that the Raiders will key on him a little bit, and I think the wideouts will actually end up hurting the Raiders more than the tight end will this week.
I can see that happening.
No, I like that. That's a good call. Plus, again, guy scored 2 touchdowns one week, scored again last week.
He's going to have a week where he doesn't
score
score.
20 touchdowns. So,
Nobody does. Nobody does.
All right, let's go with our sleepers. I have got Andy Dalton this week, Cincinnati against Green Bay.
I like that.
Green Bay's pass defense is kind of weak. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I like Dalton this week.
Okay, I'm going to go with Sam Bradford, who more of a garbage time game against Atlanta last week, but played well. And then we saw Austin breakout last week.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
I went up against him, I know.
Yeah,
It wasn't
so,
good for me.
I'll say that Bradford has a big game against Dallas.
I'm going to go with Carson Palmer. I know he always comes in. He just drafted off the top 10, so I'm able to use him as a bit of a sleeper. I think that they'll have another big day throwing the ball against the Saints. I think it'll go back and forth.
All right. Running backs, you know, this is a reach, but as a sleeper this week, I've got Bobby Rainey, Cleveland.
Super reach.
Huh?
Super reach. This is like a
Well,
if he has a good game, this is a great call.
Here's the situation here. Whedon is out. They brought in McGahee. They're saying
He's not gonna
McGahee's
be
going to
ready.
play. He's not ready. He's not even close to ready. He's probably not going to be ready 6 weeks from now. You know, Minnesota's 23 against the run. You know, somebody's got to be the offense today, and I think they're going to try to use Rainey in every way possible. The guy hasn't had a carry in his career yet, but
It's a great call. If he has a good game, you're going to look great.
I'm going to look good.
I went with Bernard Pierce without Ray Rice playing. He's a good back. This guy could be a starter on any team, really. He could be. So I'm going to say he has a nice game today.
Yeah, I like that one today.
I'm going with St. Louis's Richardson this week. I know Trent is a negative, but I'm going to say that Richardson has a solid game against the Cowboy run D, which has been good this year.
Right.
It's been real good. I just think they're going to be a little bit more focused on trying to keep the receivers in the short passing game in check, and I think Richardson will break one.
Makes sense. My wide receiver this week is Hankerson against Detroit. You know, this guy's very inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get out of him. I just see him having a pretty big week against the Lions, even if it's garbage time.
No, but they'll be throwing the ball against Detroit, so you have to figure he could be one of the guys.
Yeah.
I went with Golden Tate, who has been totally invisible this year. And prior to the drafts, he was climbing up guys' third receiver boards, maybe a fourth receiver. He hasn't done anything, so I'm going to say he has a breakout game today.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Kenny Britt, the bad boy. I think he's going to have a pretty good game against San Diego. I think this is one of those games that could be like 31-7. I think the Titans are going to blow them out. 2 straight games across the country for San Diego, not easy. I think that Britt has a big day. I think he breaks out 100 yards and at least a score.
Okay. All right, my tight end this week is Charles Clay. I like him. I like what he's been doing. I think he's going to step up. You know, he's had 5 catches in the first 2 games, 5 catches in each of the first 2 games. You know, 109 yards last week. You know, I think him and Tannehill are starting to develop a rapport. I like Clay going forward.
Every time I put the Miami-Cleveland game on and the Miami-Colt game on last week, this guy was getting the ball. Just seeing that, I looked up and I'm like, wow, this guy. And then I thought he might be eligible at running back.
But he wasn't.
So he can hit. He's not. So
No, I thought the same thing. I look for him the same way.
Just look, just to check.
Maybe
you know.
they'll list him as a fullback and I get him as an RB, but no.
Actually, you know, again, for some reason this year, all these tight ends are breaking out. So, you know, he's worthy of being on the roster at this point, Clay. But if he was a running back, he'd definitely be worth the roster spot.
Yeah.
I'll go with Tyler Eifert, who looked good last week. If he had any kind of speed, would have had an 80-yard touchdown. But
they caught
he's getting a little rapport, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
with Clay. A little rapport there with Dalton and him. And, you know, moving forward, I think he's going to solid play.
Heath Miller's back, and I think he's going to catch a score tonight. I think that Heath Miller will have a decent game in his first game back against the Bears, and I think that he's my sleeper for tonight.
Okay.
And Roethlisberger desperately needs him because they look awful.
Yes. All right, listen, we have a couple of minutes left. We're going to just quickly give you the rundown on last week's hosts head-to-head competition. Last week we had Porterhouse with a big week.
Aaron Rodgers, basically.
Yeah, listen, 156 points. You know, Jimmy Graham, big for you. Jones, big for you.
Cruz.
Julio Jones was huge. Jimmy Graham was huge. You know, Victor Cruz was huge. Prater didn't do much. Morris and Peterson were okay. Peyton Manning was really, really solid.
You only had one bad guy, that was Fitzgerald. The rest of your team was, you know,
everybody was solid across the board.
Hey, you know, it was a tough, it was a close week this week between the 3 of us.
I'm just saying the Commander was so close with Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you came in
rode it all the way
149.
You were right there.
The reason I didn't win is because Reggie Bush got hurt.
Yeah.
So I lost all those catches and everything.
And Jared Cook was a non-factor.
And Jared Cook did 0.
Right.
So, you know, the rest of my guys did great. It's just those 2 guys.
And I was a pretty close third with 143 points. You know, Breeze hurt me a little bit.
Some will call it third, some will call it last.
Yeah, well, listen.
Whatever way you want to position it as. I'll go with last. How about that?
All right, so let's update you on the standings here. We've got Porterhouse now making the big jump into first place at 3-1. I'm 2-2 after losing both of my my matchups this week. Commander 1-3 and right in the mix. Let's give you the quick rundown on who we chose for this week. Interesting little draft that we had this week.
Well, so far the trend has been whoever has the first pick wins both games.
Yeah, pretty
so
much.
I'm hoping that happens this
It's
week.
your turn
'cause I had
this
the first
week.
pick. I went with, you want to start first?
No, okay.
Okay, I went with Kaepernick as my quarterback. I had the first pick, so no-brainer, Adrian Peterson. I took Forte, and I took Spiller as my flex guy. And then my receivers are A.J. Green and Victor Cruz. I took Walsh as my kicker, and Seattle's defense, which I could have actually taken with my first pick, I think, this week. They're
Pretty
gonna
much,
have
it was a great pick.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. You know, I went kind of Denver heavy this week. I took Peyton Manning. I'm going against you on Lynch. I think Lynch is going to have another big day. I took Alfred Morris.
It's been relatively quiet so far because they've been behind.
Yeah. I'm going with the Thomas, Manning Thomas connection.
Okay.
And I took both of the Thomas guys.
Good move.
It's going to be all or nothing for me this week. I took Des Bryant. I took Cobb, who I'm really high on, Gostkowski, and the Minnesota defense.
And again, with Hoyer in there, you never know. Hoyer could be a solid play, but you have to assume he's going to be bad. So that Viking defense should have a nice game.
Yeah.
I went with Rodgers. I mean, I don't think he's going to have a huge game. I think he'll still put up some touchdowns against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I like Martin again this week. I like McFadden. I'm going out on a limb, making him one of the top 6 running backs taking it in our draft. Calvin Johnson, no-brainer. I think Garcon has a huge game for the Redskins this week. Colby
Here
Fleener.
was an interesting one.
I went with Fleener.
You went over a lot of other bigger names to reach for Fleener.
You know, because we can sit here and take the All-Stars every week.
I
There's
know,
only 3
I know.
tight ends going.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a shot on Fleener has a good game again, as he goes back home. He's a
Right.
Stanford guy.
Yes, yeah.
I think Brandon Marshall will play well. Hartley will kick for me, and the Bear defense on Sunday night. Roethlisberger gets sacked a ton.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just one of those things. I
Yeah.
just think that a forced turnover here, a forced turnover there. And they have a ways of scoring. They score defensively almost every week, it seems like.
Yeah. All right, listen, I think we have like a minute or two left. Let's just quickly go over waiver wire pickups for the week, and then we'll wrap it up. Phillip Rivers, we talked about a little bit. Might be a guy that's out there in some leagues.
Shouldn't be at this point, though.
Probably not, but, you know, it depends on the type of league you're in. Some running backs that we already talked about that you certainly want to try to pick up.
Well, Snelling was the one we didn't discuss.
Yeah,
and
Jason
he's
Snelling.
the guy, especially if you have Steven Jackson, you have to have Snelling. And I like Snelling way more than I like Rodgers. To me, he's more of a third down back at most. When Turner got hurt previous years, Snelling was the feature guy. So
Yeah.
he's a good pickup.
He's a
If you need
230-pound
somebody,
guy. Yeah.
if you have injuries, I throw him right in there.
Yeah.
And Snelling's going to score every week.
He's
He's
gonna
going to
get
get
all
in the
the
end
goal
zone. Rodgers, no guarantee. Snelling has a nose for the end zone.
Yeah.
Even when they did have Turner, Snelling still got
He got his
carries.
carries, he got his
and he got carries close to the goal line.
Yeah, here's a guy, too, that might be useful for at least a couple of weeks until Bell gets back. But Felix Jones is now the starting running back in Pittsburgh. He might be worth picking
Bell
up.
practiced this week, won't play, but he practiced. So
Should be good to go next week.
I would think he'll play next week.
Yeah, probably. We talked about Bobby Rainey. We talked about McGahee and Starks.
And Mayana also on that team
Yes.
is another guy
Yeah.
that you could look at. He catches the ball out of the backfield a little bit.
Yeah. Wide receivers, not a ton out there this week. You might want to take a flyer on Eddie Royal.
Well, Eddie Royal has to be owned. 5 touchdowns in 2 weeks. I mean, usually in any league I'm in, he's not available. So.
Yeah.
And the guy you picked this week still available in some leagues, Hankerson.
Yeah.
You can still find him available in certain spots. Ruben Randall, you can still find available in certain spots.
One other receiver was Pettis on the
Yeah,
Rams.
yeah.
He had a nice game. So
Absolutely.
again, desperation. If you need somebody, he's not a bad guy.
Streeter also not a bad option this week because they will have to throw the ball somewhat a little bit against the Bronco defense.
Right.
And I know he's near and dear to your heart.
And a couple of tight ends that we threw out there already were Clay and Fleener. Anybody else?
I think Eifert,
Yeah,
like
Eifert
you
had a
mentioned
good
before,
game.
is certainly a guy you have to look at going forward.
But it's looking like tight end is 20 deep this year.
It's
where
yeah.
in years past
Yeah.
it was like 3 or 4 guys.
Right.
This year it's amazing.
Now, in your draft, if you didn't take, if you didn't take Graham or even Gronkowski, you could afford to wait this year.
Yeah.
You could definitely afford to
I
wait.
went all in on Graham, and now looking back on it, I would have had another better running back.
Yeah.
And I have Thomas on most of my teams, so he's just sitting on the bench.
No,
You
you're
know,
right.
until the bye weeks come for
But
flex.
who knew?
The funny thing is how Cameron's going to be affected with the loss of Richardson and with the loss of Whedon. And listen, is Whedon that big over Hoyer? I don't think so.
Probably not.
I mean, but the fact that Hoyer beats out Campbell just tells you how far Jason Campbell has fallen.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a first-round pick out of Auburn back in the day.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's not much at all. But hopefully, I would think that Cameron will still be leaned out on even more. Actually, I think this will actually benefit him a little bit more. Whether just be dumping, it might be shorter
Check down.
passes and stuff like that. But I think he'll make more receptions.
All right, listen, guys, thanks to the lovely Christine behind the glass for helping us out today, and as always. And for Fantasy Football Code Red, this is the Admiral and Commander Kevin and Porterhouse to my right. Wishing you guys some good luck this week in your matchups, and we'll see you next week.